all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Hello and welcome to History for Weirdos.
We're your hosts, Andrew
and Stephanie.
And each week, we're going to take you on a journey into the strange, obscure, and relentlessly entertaining corners of human history.
Now listen up, friends, because it's about to get weird. Hello, Weirdos. Welcome to the History for Weirdos podcast. My name is Stephanie.
And I'm Andrew.
And this is episode...
number 5.
Yeah, and Andrew's going to be doing this episode. Usually we like to switch off each episode. Mm-hmm. Like I tell one, he tells one. And I think technically this should be my turn.
It should be your turn, yeah. But you had a special one coming up.
Yeah.
Should we tease them or should we just let them be in suspense?
We'll do a slight tease in that it's going to be... I really wanted to do the Valentine's Day episode special we're doing.
Yes, Valentine's Day.
So that'll be the one coming out after this. But in the meantime, Andrew's got a really cool weird history story for us about nuclear war.
It does have to do with nuclear war, and more specifically about the men who prevented nuclear war.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, this is pretty, they literally saved the world.
I guess you'll tell me. I was like, wait, both at the same time or in separate instances?
This is completely separate instances.
Okay.
And this is what's, a little bit scary about nuclear warfare, nuclear bombs, is that at any moment, we're minutes away from complete and utter annihilation.
This is such a cheerful episode already. Thank you for lifting us up,
yes.
babe. And happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday, You're just moments away. Actually, but, sometimes I can personally attest, and I think a lot of people can attest, maybe nuclear warfare is better than your job.
Oh, my gosh. I think that's very subjective.
It's very subjective, of course. And, lighthearted joke.
But go ahead and tell me more about the two men who prevented nuclear war.
Absolutely. So before I go into these two guys, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. So to kind of fully understand these two men, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the history of the Cold War.
Okay.
So just very quickly.
Yeah, some context.
The Cold War started in pretty much the immediate aftermath of World War II. A lot of historians agree that it's the year's 1947 is when it starts. Okay. The Western Bloc, headed by the United States and Western Europe, versus the Eastern Bloc, which is mainly the USSR and its puppet states throughout Eastern Europe.
Okay.
During this time, and then that lasted from 1947 to 1991, and
wow,
yeah, so a really long time.
And can you explain? Just give like a definition in your own words why it's called a Cold War or the Cold War?
Yeah, so it was basically a war of ideas of like capitalism on, and the free market, more or less on the Western Bloc versus communism on the Eastern Bloc with the USSR.
Okay.
So, and it was a Cold War in that like the US and the USSR never fought each other directly. Partly because we couldn't. It would be the end of the world. We both had nuclear weapons.
Right.
The USA had nuclear weapons even before the start of the Cold War. And then in 1949, the Soviet Union developed nuclear weapons.
So this is like really modern warfare, modern problems to have, is that if like a combat situation were actually initiated, it would actually look like complete and utter destruction of the human race.
Yeah, so they couldn't really do that.
Yeah.
So instead they developed, there were what are called proxy wars, essentially. The Vietnam War is probably the most famous example of this, sadly enough, where the U.S. was directly involved. The Soviets weren't, but the Soviets had, their allies where they essentially prop them up to fight the USA, right? So in this case, it was the Viet Cong.
Right.
Yeah, so
devastating.
It was devastating.
War.
And then, in the early 80s, the USA helped out, essentially, were the beginning of the Taliban to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan.
Wow. So that's all connected.
Exactly. It's all connected. And then, of course, we have the term blowback, where the Taliban didn't eventually become our friends in the end.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
It's super interesting context and really important to remember how all of these seemingly disjointed events are really part of a larger issue.
Exactly. In fact, there was a young man who was he wasn't part of the Taliban, but he was a mujahideen, rebel against the Soviets by the name of Osama bin Laden, who was given
amazing.
Weapons by the United States federal government.
That's a whole nother story.
I know. We can go into that. I feel like
crazy.
maybe deserves its own episode.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy.
So
you've given us the context.
That's to give a little bit of the context behind this whole
Cold
thing.
War.
So the Cold War. So there was probably a lot of men and women that stopped nuclear warfare from happening. However, I chose these two men for two main reasons. One, because from an American perspective, we probably focus a lot more on Americans than we do on Russians or
or on anyone else in the world.
Or really anyone else. Yeah.
Americans love Americans.
I really wanted to highlight these two Russian men who were heroes.
Yeah.
They were on the other side from,
the quote unquote other side.
The quote unquote other side. Yeah. But they stopped, they had rational heads and they stopped the world from utter annihilation.
That's awesome.
So, two very different men in two different times, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, separated by decades.
Wow.
Yeah, interestingly enough.
I really like that you're taking us out of the American-centric focus.
Exactly.
That we, all of us who are here in the U.S. have just lived in.
Exactly.
Forever. It's nice to think about others.
Yeah, seriously. And then also the second reason is just because, it's kind of almost really the same as the first reason, is that I just wanted to I picked these two guys because we don't know a whole lot about them. Unsung heroes. They truly are. I mean, they've gotten a little bit more attention in the last couple decades, but besides maybe a movie here or there, people don't really know about these guys. So I feel like we just need to talk about them.
So what's weird in this story is how little we know about each of them.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Start us off with the first one.
So without further ado, let's get into guy numero uno. So first man we have, his name is Vasily Arkhipov.
Okay.
He's a Soviet Navy officer credited with preventing a Soviet nuclear strike and presuming all-out nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So 1961, if my memory serves. A little bit about him. So he's kind of cool. He didn't come from money or anything. He was born to a peasant family in 1926 and then educated at a naval school, straight, and I think what would be equivalent to our elementary or middle school.
Wow.
Yeah, so
he's so young.
I don't know if it was forced or he wanted to do that, but
or if it was common practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he actually participated even in World War II towards the end. He must have been really young. And also I think it must have been in the last month or so because he was part of the Soviet-Japanese War.
Oh, okay.
Which literally lasted a month.
Yeah.
It was the last month of World War II. In 61, though, he was appointed as deputy commander of a nuclear submarine called the K-19.
Okay.
Which is a movie, I believe, with Harrison Ford.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I've never seen it.
Yeah. And so
have you seen it?
I don't think I have, actually.
Well, now we have to watch it.
Now we're going to have to watch it,
okay.
Yeah. So, and what's crazy is, so this is before, what he's really known for. But he made the news when he and his crew were forced to jerry-rig the nuclear core of their submarine because it was going into full-blown meltdown.
Oh, yeah, I have heard of this.
Yeah, so, I think, and it's a famous story in and of itself.
Wow.
I know, pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
So and when it was going in full meltdown, I don't think it would have triggered a nuclear explosion, but it would have leaked tons of nuclear material into the water and then obviously killed everyone on board.
Yeah.
And it would have been a complete environmental disaster.
Of course. The repercussions of that would last decades.
Decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even 100 years. Who knows? Honestly, I don't know. So sadly enough, at least 24 of the crew, including Vasily, were exposed to radiation, and unfortunately, many of these soldiers died within a month of the incident. Obviously, our boy Vasily did not, but
yeah, or else we wouldn't be
talking about him.
Yeah,
but unfortunately, other sailors did die, sadly enough, and it's not an easy way to go. Radiation poisoning.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I bet
but. His biggest accomplishment is yet to come.
After all of that.
So we're going to fast forward to October 27th, 1962. So Cuban Missile Crisis is in 1962, not 1961, as I said.
1962.
1962. So this is during the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is probably maybe the closest we've ever gotten to full-blown nuclear war in the history of humanity. Pretty crazy. Essentially, just to give a really quick background on the Cuban Missile Crisis, Soviet submarines were coming into the Bay of Havana in Cuba, and the U.S. had warships just outside, on international waters, basically blockading it, saying no, you can't, because we knew that they were establishing. I can't speak correctly. Basically nuclear sites, and which is 100 miles off the coast of Florida.
Right.
Which the U.S. was like, no. Right?
You can't do that.
You can't do that. So Vasily is now the flotilla commodore in charge of the few submarines in the area. And this is important later on.
Okay.
The submarine he's on is cruising along, and the U.S. Navy starts dropping depth charges.
What's that?
So a depth charge is when it's kind of just what it sounds like. It's like when boats will drop kind of delayed bombs.
Oh,
so they'll sink through the water, and then once they reach a certain depth, or they've been dropping for a certain amount of time, they explode.
Wow!
So it's to combat submarines.
Okay.
And it's to either combat or say you can't come here.
Right.
Don't come here. Yeah. And I don't think the U.S. was actually trying to start a war here. They were just trying to divert it. I know, right? You're trying. It's this guy, we can't. This isn't some little power that we can beat up on. This is straight up another nuclear power. Yeah. So we have to give them a little bit of respect. They're dropping these depth charges though to kind of divert its path away. Instead of going straight into the port and make it turn around.
Okay.
And so, this causes the sub though to dive further down into the water. And because of the depth, though, that they're at, they can't receive any transmissions from the surface anymore. So they're completely cut off from Moscow. And
so they don't know what's going on.
Nothing.
With the other subs or up above. Wow.
Yeah, and also right now, that's tensions scary. Are high.
Yeah, that's so scary.
Yeah, it's really scary. I'm glad I didn't live through this time. This must have been terrifying.
In general, being on a submarine sounds scary to me, let alone during the Cold War, and then getting all of your communication completely cut off.
Yes.
That sounds like a horror movie.
When tensions are the highest they've probably ever been during the Cold War, and ever will be.
Right, ever will be.
It's pretty nuts, to say the least, and that doesn't even begin to describe it. So... And also, by this point, to further make matters worse, they hadn't heard from Moscow in days, even prior to diving down. So they're like, what's going on? God. Is Moscow just completely obliterated? Had there been already nuclear war?
Right.
They didn't know.
Right.
And because, also, you have to know, at this time, tensions are so high that,
anything could happen.
Anything could happen, and people are probably not thinking rationally at this point.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, there's no way people are talking or thinking rationally and making the best decisions possible.
The fact that two world powers even have nuclear war on the table is already going to make reason fly out the window.
Yes.
When it comes to decision making.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. This is very stressful.
It is. Yeah. Just reading it is stressful. I'm not even there. I wasn't even born. I think my parents were tiny, infants at this
little
point.
Babies.
Yeah, little babies.
That's crazy.
I know. So this was a while ago. Because they're old.
Right, super old.
Sorry, Mom and Dad, if you're listening. So many of the crew, including the captain and what they called a political officer, thought that the nuclear war had already broken out, kind of like I had mentioned.
Right.
So, and the political officer...
They just jumped to the worst case scenario.
Exactly.
It's already started.
And also what's stupid is, like, they have, like, a political officer is someone who ranks pretty highly and can make decisions. And is basically, they're just there to ensure that, like, Soviet and communist ideals are upheld within, like, the military.
That's so interesting.
So it's like they're...
have we had something similar like that in the American military?
Not that I'm aware of, but doesn't mean that, you know, it didn't exist at some time.
Right, or formally or informally.
Exactly.
What an interesting position.
I know.
It's too dogmatic, I'd say.
It's really dogmatic. Yeah, it's especially because, like, a lot of these guys aren't military men themselves.
Right.
So they're just there, like, spouting off bullshit,
like,
you know?
Their political ideals, which in wartime feel like bullshit.
Yeah, and it's like, okay,
Absolutely.
Why don't we just, like, try to, like, not, you know, be the aggressors, and let's just try not to, like, have our men killed.
Yeah.
That's kind of like step
plan.
one.
Step
you know?
one. Let's not die.
Then let's worry about your, like, you know, political garbage, like, later on.
Exactly.
I know, it's nuts. So, the captain, Valentin Grigorovich Savitsky, wanted to launch a nuclear torpedo at the U.S. Navy ship.
Holy...
So, kind of overkill, first of all.
Wow.
Yeah, like, it's...
Talk about trigger happy.
Yeah, that's trigger happy big time. It's like, yo, not just a, you know, torpedo, it's a nuclear torpedo at just one ship.
Holy crap.
Yeah. But in order to do this, thank God, they needed the political officer and Vasily's approval to do so.
Okay.
What's interesting about the situation is since Vasily, our boy, was on the ship, he technically didn't outrank the captain in terms of the, like, being on board.
Okay.
But he was, like, kind of the flotilla commodore. So he was in charge of the flotilla. So, like, the captain can make decisions about the ship, but since Vasily was on the ship, in order to launch...
What's the flotilla? Sorry,
the flotilla is just, like, a group of, like, either ships or submarines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like the fleet.
The fleet, yeah. I mean, it's small. It's only a few.
Okay.
And so, usually, the captain only needs the political officer and himself, obviously, to launch this nuclear...
What do you think? I think yes.
I think, yeah. What do you think? Yes, I think yes. Okay,
yes,
let's
quiet,
launch.
quiet.
I don't know why we were British there for a second.
On a Russian submarine.
And Vasily was like, no, this is a terrible idea.
Yay, Vasily.
Vasily, our boy and hero, refused and essentially just would not back down, advising that they need to have cooler heads. So literally, like, cooler heads prevail is so accurate in this, like, situation.
Absolutely. You don't just launch off nuclear shit just because you feel like maybe this is the right move.
Yeah, he's like, you know what, guys? Instead, why don't we do this? Maybe let's, like, turn back a little bit, resurface, contact Moscow, see what to do.
That's a really good idea.
And thank God.
Right.
Thank you, God.
I can't believe
for Vasily.
Vasily was alone in this thought. He was the weirdo in this situation.
He was the weirdo.
Like, what do you mean, Vasily? Don't you want to, like, nuke this ship for fun?
Yeah, I mean, you know, nuclear war happens, but
whatever.
You know, whatever.
Yeah, because that one action would have incited
everything. It would have incited
total
full
chaos.
Blown. I mean, maybe not. It wouldn't. Maybe if.
Like, how do you think the U.S. would have reacted?
Well, I mean, it certainly wouldn't have been good.
Yeah,
I can't imagine, like, we would have had some sort of strike. I don't know if it would have been full blown nuclear strike or, like, just one tactical strike. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, the threat of nuclear war would have been, like, vastly higher.
Right.
Even in this situation where it was pretty high.
Mm-hmm. It's so scary.
So, the aftermath after this happened. Immediately upon return to Russia, many crew members were faced with disgrace from their superiors. Weirdly enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were disgraced? Yeah,
let me get in. Like, one admiral told them, it would have been better if you had gone down with your ship. Dude, these people are nuts.
Yeah, I think that's like, no, man. Like,
no, maybe, I don't know. Like, everyone survived. We didn't launch nuclear war. Like,
I think we did a good job.
I think that's a win.
Yeah.
That's a win in my book.
Wow. It just speaks so much to the culture, and it speaks so much to the culture that Vasily spoke out against.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
I know. Mm-hmm. I know, it really is. So, in fact, Olga, Arkapov's wife, so our boy Vasily Arkapov's wife, even said that he didn't like talk about it. He felt that they didn't appreciate what they had gone through. Like, they, as in, like, the high-ranking, like, military in Moscow. Mm-hmm. And they probably didn't. I definitely don't think they did.
No, I don't think they gave a crap, to be honest. I don't think they were being empathetic at all.
They would rather look good.
Right.
And lose, I don't know, dozens, hundreds of men.
Wow. Human lives.
Yeah.
Your countrymen, you're the people that you're in charge of keeping safe.
It reminds me of that one line in 1917. Great movie, by the way.
Mm-hmm. If you all haven't seen it, beautiful, beautiful movie.
Absolutely.
We just saw it recently, like kind of late, and I absolutely loved it. It was stressful, but it was really
stressful,
good.
But it was beautiful. Basically the main character runs into a high-ranking military official on his team, and he says to the kid, make sure you have witnesses when you give the order, essentially relay the order from the general to this colonel to call off an attack, because some men just want the fight.
Right. Some men just want the fight.
Yeah, even in the face of certain annihilation.
Yeah.
So, and I think that quote really applies here.
Yeah, I think it applies to, unfortunately, so many instances of war in human history, certainly in American history. So, but it's interesting to see that sort of vicious disregard for human life portrayed in another military as well. Yeah,
it's not like a uniquely American experience.
Yeah.
It's a human experience.
Yeah.
Crazy. Mm-hmm. So, back to the story, each captain was required to present a report of the events during the mission to the Soviet defense minister, Andrei Grechko, or Grechko. Grechko, I don't know. Who cares? Grechko was infuriated with the crew's failure to follow the strict orders of secrecy after finding out they had been discovered by the Americans. Yeah, because fuck them, right?
The strict orders of secrecy?
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, one officer even noted Grechko's reaction, stating that he, upon learning that it was the diesel submarines that went to Cuba, removed his glasses and hit them against the table in fury, breaking them into small pieces and abruptly leaving the room after that.
Oh, shit.
So
he was mad.
Exactly. In 2002, retired commander Vadim Pavlovich Orlov, a participant in the events, held a press conference revealing the subs were armed with nuclear torpedoes and that Arkhipov was the reason those devices had not been fired. So this guy was like, it was him. It was this guy. He was the reason, we are still alive today.
Wow. In 2002?
That was 2002. So this is this is a full-blown decade after the Soviet Union had already had fallen. So
that secrecy was like paramount to them.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was like a cult of secrecy.
It really was. Mm-hmm. So, and when discussing the Cuban Missile Crisis, again, also in 2002, the U.S. Defense Secretary at the time, Robert McNamara, stated that and this is a direct quote, we came very close to nuclear war, closer than we knew even at the time. So, and Arthur M. Schlesinger Jr., an advisor for JFK's administration and a historian, continued this by stating, this was not only the most dangerous moment of the Cold War, it was the most dangerous moment in human history.
And he's not exaggerating.
No, this guy is not exaggerating.
He's a historian as well?
He's a historian and was part of the JFK administration.
Wow.
So, who was the president at the time. So he
knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he was high up.
Wow.
So, I think, I just want to take a moment here to really give some thanks to Vasily Arkhipov, because if it wasn't for him, I might not be alive. None of us here might not be alive listening to this podcast.
Because I think that's so beautiful, because it reminds us that we always have a choice.
Always.
No matter how hard it is, no matter who you're up against. Like, it must have been so hard for him to say to those two other men, very powerful men, like, no.
Yeah.
You need my yes, and I'm not going to give it to you because it's not worth the human lives and the repercussions that are going to come of it.
Exactly. I could not agree with you more.
His weirdo aspect was his total heroism.
Yeah, he was a weirdo. But in the best sense. Vasily.
What's his full name again?
Vasily Arkhipov.
Arkhipov. Thank you so much. So we could be here sitting at my parents' kitchen table telling the story.
Yeah, exactly.
We're here alive to tell the tale because of Vasily.
Thank you, Vasily. Mm-hmm. So, moment of thanks to Vasily, but now moving on to numero 2.
Numero 2?
A little Spanglish there. I don't know why I did that. We did British accents, Spanglish. What's next?
Just global citizens, that's why.
That's right. So this is guy number 2. Uh-huh. His name is Stanislav. Oh man, his middle name's hard. Yevgrovovich Petrov.
Okay.
I'm just gonna call him Petrov from now on. Mm-hmm. He was a lieutenant colonel of the Soviet Air Defense Forces who played a key role in the 1983 Soviet nuclear false alarm incident.
Soviet nuclear false alarm incident.
Yes.
That sounds so scary.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So this guy, he was born in 1939, so, same year that World War II broke out, and his parents were part of the war effort against Nazi Germany. Mm. His father was a fighter pilot, and his mother was a nurse.
Oh, how cute.
Just, I think, very,
that's like
traditional.
So, quintessential what you think of people doing at that time.
Exactly.
And falling in love.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, we don't know a whole lot about his early childhood, but later on, we do know that he enrolled at the Kiev Higher Engineering Radio Technical College at the Soviet Air Forces, and after graduating in 1972, he joined the Soviet Air Defense Forces. Mm-hmm. And in the early 70s, he was assigned to the organization that oversaw the new early warning system intended to detect ballistic missiles attacks from NATO countries.
Wow.
So basically just making sure that, monitoring the skies essentially.
That's a super important job.
Yeah, that must be stressful.
Yes. Like, we've all had the experience where we're at a job, even if it's like serving food and people act like you're freaking like saving the world. Like, part of his job was literally to save his country.
Yes.
To keep an eye out to make sure everyone's okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty nuts, huh?
I can't imagine the pressure.
I know. So that was his job. He wasn't necessarily like a strict military man. Mm-hmm. He was more of like, I think, an engineer.
More of a man of science.
Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh. But I think just out of necessity, he was officially part of... I don't know, it's like this weird gray area where he wasn't necessarily military, but he wasn't like full-blown civilian either. Yeah. I think he leaned more on the civilian side, was still under the branch of the military. Yeah,
probably just to perform his job had to have like high military clearance.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. It must have been like very high. Mm-hmm. So, the event. September 26, 1983. So, we're still in the Cold War.
Right.
This is decades after the Cuban Missile Crisis.
So long.
But...
it was chilly for a long time.
Chill. And it was not like chill.
No, not chill. Like the opposite of chill.
Yeah, it was chilly, not chill. Mm-hmm. And Petrov was on duty this day. Again, September 26, 1983.
Okay.
And he was at the command center for the OKO nuclear early warning system when the system reported that a missile had been launched from the U.S., followed up by up to 5 more.
What?
So in total, up to 6 missiles being fired from the U.S. Again, early warning system. Uh-huh. However, though, at this point, he disobeyed Soviet standard operating procedures or instructions and reported this as a false alarm immediately. Thus... preventing an erroneous retaliatory nuclear strike against NATO countries. So, no biggie.
What? So, it sounds like, and I don't know if you know this, but tell me if I'm correct, it sounds like to have received a warning signal like that, like the immediate, standardized reaction was to just also strike NATO countries.
Yes, immediately.
Don't ask questions.
Don't ask questions.
Just fire back.
fire nuclear missiles back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I wonder why did he say it was a false alarm?
It's funny because I'm literally about to say that.
Oh.
Look at that. Yeah. So, he later stated that the reason he knew this was a false alarm was due to the fact that if the U.S. did initiate a nuclear strike, it would have been all out. It would have been not 6 missiles. It would have been far many.
That's okay, like probably true, but what a freaking split-second decision to make.
Yeah.
He's betting on his gut right there.
He is. It's kind of crazy. And also, he was like, you know what? This system is brand new, so it is prone to errors. And he knew that. Like, and it was convinced. Crazy. He was immediately convinced that, like, this is an error.
He didn't let fear take over his decision-making at all. He was like, let's be reasonable, let's be logical, which I guess, like you said just earlier, he's more of a man of science than a military man.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong with being a military man, but I mean, he's so trained to think things through before acting.
Exactly. And like in the military, I think, you know, I mean, I think just from our dialogue, we're sounding like we're, you know, like not in
like
favor
anti-military.
of anti-military. That's like far from the case.
I work with veterans.
Yeah, she works with veterans, so that's not the case at all. I just think they're two different skill sets, right? In the military, you need to react, like to survive, and like, you know, making those split-second decisions is like literally, you know, the difference between life and death. Exactly. Whereas him, you know, he has a little bit of time. He's a man of science, and he's like, you know what, we need to like analyze this and before
making things worse.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Pretty nuts. And so what's interesting is that, like, I mean, why this was an error, apparently is incredibly rare.
Oh my God.
So, and the fact that he knew this is amazing.
So this little, like, technical error could have absolutely altered human history forever, could have destroyed so many lives.
Yes.
If this man didn't just know, like, no, this is wrong.
Exactly.
And trust his gut.
Exactly.
Trust your gut, friends. Your intuition knows what's up.
Right. Mm-hmm. The official reason, a rare alignment of sunlight on high altitude clouds above North Dakota, which, you know, are, I think, probably a lot of nuclear missiles were, or silos were.
Yeah, of course.
Or are, I don't know. And the I don't even know how to pronounce this word, the Molniya orbits of the satellites, an error later corrected by cross-referencing a geostationary satellite. It just sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo to me, but
so it's like it was super cloudy. Is that what that means? It was really cloudy, and the sun was hitting the clouds in a funny way.
Yes, and it was reflecting that sunlight back to like non-stationary satellites.
Okay, non-stationary.
I think to put it, that's the best we'll get. You know,
I'm a social worker. My brain can't handle this.
Yeah. So like, and the thing, okay. So he saves the world, more or less. Maybe, you know, it wasn't quite as, like, profound as our boy Vasily earlier.
Right. Who, like, truly made they both made hard decisions.
Exactly.
And they both went against the grain to do it.
They both went against protocol. They both were, like, you know, they're rebels.
Yeah.
In a sense. And... But, and again, like, the thing that pisses me off about this, he was never rewarded.
No one said thanks?
No, like, he didn't get anything. He didn't get any sort of accommodation, no financial reward, of course, and then not even a pat on the back.
No one sent him, like, a lovely thank you card in a muffin basket, even?
Yes. You know what? And in fact, you know what's crazy? So this happened in 1983. The public didn't even know about this until 15 years later, when in 1998, a high-ranking ex-Soviet general released his memoirs.
Oh, shit.
And before this release...
I bet that would be super interesting to read.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
I should definitely read that. And what's really sad about this whole thing, too, is before this information was released, our boy, Petrov, had suffered a complete mental breakdown.
No!
And was made a scapegoat for this event.
No!
Yeah. So not only did the Soviets not give him the credit that was so deserved... They made him a scapegoat for some reason.
What did they say?
Because, like, you know, it was an error, right?
So
and someone had to be blamed, and it's him for like the one who corrected the error, who found out the error.
No, so
And I literally wrote in my notes, such BS.
Yeah.
And I want to say this out loud like a couple of times. That is such BS.
Can I ask, what was the series of events? Did they blame him for the error that he corrected and then he had a mental breakdown? Or had he had a mental breakdown so they took advantage of that and made him the scapegoat?
No, I think he had the mental breakdown after this.
Oh, that's so sad.
And then it just further solidified, their standing, and I put that in like air quotes, that, he was the reason for this.
Oh my God. That's so vicious.
But there is a silver lining to all of this.
Okay, good.
In the 2000s, he started receiving lots of awards for his his actions and his heroism and
his intelligence.
Yes, and even was recognized in a movie titled "The Man Who Saved the World."
Oh.
This was later on. This was, I think, it was like some European filmmaker back in like 2013. I want to say. Not entirely sure.
Was Petrov still alive?
He was still alive. So he saw this. He died shortly after that came out. But at least he saw that his name was out there. He was recognized.
Wow.
And finally given some credit for this.
And it's not even necessarily like in that situation, like you're doing it for credit or he asked for credit. But even if he had never been acknowledged, that sucks. But to have been blamed.
Exactly.
That would drive anyone insane. That would be so demoralizing and feel so isolating. I'm so happy that he got to see people acknowledging his truth.
Right.
That he wasn't just painted as this idiot bad guy.
Exactly. And
oh my God.
I know, it just I cannot believe though just like the type of behavior that their command essentially is promoting is just to be an idiot and is to not make the right choice.
Yeah.
Like with their actions against our boy.
Yeah, like act first, think later.
Yeah, like our boy Petrov.
If you start nuclear war, like whatever.
Yeah, like our boy Petrov literally saved the world, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna blame you for technical glitches that aren't even your fault to begin with.
In my clinical opinion.
Yes, I would love to hear this.
In my clinical opinion, people suck.
Yeah, people do suck. People really freaking suck.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that I personally, like Andrew and I we tell each other like a little bit like, oh, I'm going to probably do this story for this episode, but we don't know the story that the other's going to reveal.
Right.
And I'm so glad you did this because I had never heard of either of these men, and I'm sure so many people haven't, even though, like the media seems to have picked up on it a little bit. The more we can talk about them and the more we can praise thinking and
rational decision making
and caring about human lives, the better.
Yes.
That's awesome, babe.
I know.
That was a really good one.
I know, crazy, right? Like that we should like honor people who save the world, who are like care about others.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, that's why we're weirdos, friends.
That's why we're weirdos, and they were our two weirdos for the week.
Oh, I love that. Say both of their names one more time.
Okay, so the first guy is Vasily Arkhipov, and our second guy was Stanislav, saying his middle initial Y, Petrov.
Yay. Thank you both.
Thank you guys for saving the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's all I have.
That was really good.
I know.
Thank you for telling us that story, babe.
Of course. I'm glad to share those. I mean, that was... they deserve it. They deserve so much more, but that's the least I could do.
Also, like, a final thought is whenever we talk about, like, war heroes, it's always very... I mean, we love explosions and
Michael
glamour.
Bay movies.
Yeah, and, like, glamour and things sounding really exciting. And these were such, like, subtle moves, but they are war heroes. They're, like, humanity heroes.
Humanity heroes, yeah.
So I like this different perspective on it.
They're human heroes for sure.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode on the two men who saved our butts from nuclear war. And we also wanted to say really quickly, because we obviously just recently launched and we've had really sweet, really nice friends and family giving us like tons of encouragement and feedback. So thank you to everyone that's been sending us like encouraging texts and DMs and everything. We really appreciate it. And if you could do us the favor of rating the podcast and subscribing. And the reason we ask for that, the reason that podcasters tend to ask for that, is that's how other people find the podcast. People that we have not just like emotionally blackmailed to listen to our show can find it and maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, enjoy it as well.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is just to make your daily commute or whatever just a little less crappy.
Yeah, you're doing the dishes and you want to hear some weird stuff, we've got your back. So tell everyone where they can find us again.
Yes, so you can find us in 3 places: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify.
Right. And then our website is historyforweirdos.com. If you have a cool weird history story, please email us at historyforweirdos@gmail.com because we're always open to hearing different ones and different perspectives. And you can follow us at Instagram at historyforweirdos.
That's right, yeah.
Twitter, same. And TikTok? We haven't started it yet, but eventually we're going to get...
We'll get to it.
But we have an account.
Yeah, it's at history_for_weirdos.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and goodbye, weirdos.
Bye, weirdos.
Thanks for listening.
And until next time.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Las ciberofertas de JCPenney están a solo un clic hasta el martes. Encuentra ahorros en jcp.com y acaba con tu lista de regalos, con miles de ofertas como hasta 60% de descuento en mantas térmicas y decorativas, o ropa de invierno para todos desde $14.99. Consiente a esa persona especial con joyería con diamantes y piedras preciosas Yes Please a solo $19.99. JCPenney, celebraciones que valen la pena. Ofertas válidas en selección de estilos hasta el 28 de noviembre, solo en línea. Aplican exclusiones. Las ciberofertas se excluyen de los cupones. Detalles en jcp.com.